like these? I think they're
I
kind
was
of
with
cool.
you when you bought them.
Yeah.
I also bought some, but I think maybe the youth might call this old tech at
Yeah.
this point.
But it's ugly.
Get better friends. Jamie, I think we need to start today by you explaining yourself and your appearance.
You don't like my personal video recorder on my face glasses? You don't like these? I think they're
I
kind
was
of
with
cool.
you when you bought them.
Yeah.
I also bought some, but I think maybe the youth might call this old tech at this
Yeah.
point.
This is old tech. This was, I think, could have been cool if I led a lifestyle where this was worth owning. This is kind of like GoPro users. It's like you want to own one so bad, but there's just so many use cases for it until there is no more use case. And the fact is that, like, as a 40 something, I probably shouldn't be using Snapchat anyway. So these are Snapchat spectacles, the originals, the OG vending machine spectacles. This is, I think, version 2. And I think I wanted to talk about this today because Evan Spiegel has decided to debut what I can only assume is version stupid. The most recent iteration of AR goggles, as far as I can tell, where he's wearing a computational device on his face, but still called specs. This was the original term for these things. They were specs, and now he's saying that again. And yes, there is Mr. Spiegel himself, who turned down the $3 billion smartly to avoid Meta's takeover, and has decided to diverge. It's almost like watching an alternate universe diverge, and you get to see the outcome of the alternate universe as it comes out, because it does seem to me that poor Evan does not have friends who tell him that looks pretty stupid.
When you sent me this picture and before we started recording, I told you that this reminds me of when very luxurious fashion design houses come out with some crazy bonkers stuff and tell you that this is cool and you should want to wear it. And then they hawk it to the Kardashians and parade them around like, see if they're wearing it, you need to wear it. And meanwhile, you're like, I don't want to look like I come from a different planet. So, yeah, I don't think that Mr. Spiegel has friends. Why is the end of it so thick? I'm assuming
Yeah,
there's a lot of computing happening in there and that's how they've hidden it. But, like, my God.
it seems they're one. It looks like they're heavy. Look at his ear folded over.
Yes.
Um, so it's crushing his ear, which, by the way, will be painful after like 15 minutes. So you could tell that wherever he's wearing this isn't long enough wear for him to actually understand that hurts. Like me, I'm fairly sensitive to just the stems on glasses, no less like the weight on the ears. And your cartilage does take pain like that. It's not exactly a comfort device, but I do think that it's a computer. I think what he's trying to do is something akin to Apple's spatial computing device, the what are they called?
The Vision Pro?
The Vision Pro. Yeah, I should know the answer to that. But the Vision Pro is a computer on your face, which carries an external battery pack behind you off a wire. Same as these. The version that Evan Spiegel has debuted as his new versions of AR specs has a battery pack as well. Because computing on your face is intensive. It's a computer. It's like wearing a cell phone on your face that's spread out. The lenses, as you could probably see from that image, are flat. They're not curved. They're designed as computer monitors, similar to the way your eyes would be distant to a VR set of goggles. So VR goggles has two tiny little monitors, and then it has a convex lens, right? Convex. That makes it look like you're surrounding your eyes. It creates like this immersive experience. So it's basically like looking through two small telescopes at two tiny monitors. And what's fascinating, we're going to talk a little bit about the tech about this, because I think there's been these notes coming from the VC industry, the venture capitalists that are like, Evan Spiegel's on the right track and this is the path of things. And then there's the other side, which is like, this looks stupid and no one will buy it. So, and it's also like missing, there's a third part here, which is like, we're already in the discussion of this thing about like being very anti-AI, very anti-surveillance, very anti-slop. And it looks like Evan just kind of missed the boat and like popped out his slop AI surveillance device just after that. So his timing isn't exactly correct either. I don't know. I don't know what Snapchat's doing. I don't, as somebody who hasn't used it since, and I could see my thing since 2019, I'm not exactly clear on what market they're still working in. I do know that as of my last research, Snapchat was the dominant social media product for young people. But I do not know the stats of today. So I do know it's still used. It still has a fairly big body, but it's mostly used as a chat app now. It's mostly used as a communication device more than a Instagram-like device. And those things are hideous. Um,
They're absolutely terrible. Here, let's make it bigger so the people can really see.
look at his ear. I
I'm
guess just
distracted
nobody.
by the mirror nature of the glasses.
Yeah. Okay,
Um,
so those are a technology similar, like when you see a picture that changes, parallax style, like so you could see, like the two pictures are filtered. It's so he could see through and see a monitor at the same time. Um,
got it.
which is will probably give headaches. Okay, so it's different than Vision Pro. So let's talk about the difference between his product and an AR product, or that and the HoloLens. This is me being my coolest.
Hmm. Yes.
Yes, cool. Look how tiny and cool that computer is on your head. That's the Microsoft HoloLens, which was a very heavy device, but it actually didn't rest on your ears. It rested above your head, so it actually was nicer and more comfortable. And that was considered an XR or an MR device. And just to know the difference of MR or XR, virtual reality means that it's opaque. You cannot see through it. You can only experience the two monitors. So when you see through it, you need to use something called pass through. That means it puts cameras on the front end and it creates a video of the front to transmit. Then there is AR, which is translucent or transparent use of technology. So that's Pokemon Go, which is interactive on the screen in the screen ecology environment, but not actually in the physical environment. So you can't touch the Pokemon. You can't mess with them. They are what they are. Then there is XR, which is extended reality, which is more similar to the HoloLens. So it allows you to see Pokemon Go, but actually touch them with your hands in real space because it's watching you. And then there's MR, mixed reality, which is the true outcome of all this, which is the mix of AR, VR, and MR, XR at the same time, which is you could touch the digital objects as they appear in real life. You could draw pictures. You wear them all the time would be an MR device. Why he's doing AR or why he's calling them augmented, maybe assisted. I don't know why he's using the A term for this because it's extremely outdated. And it's like, it's again, like in the age of like us being mad at like Mark Zuckerberg's failed. Well, they're still winning their life cameras, which is this same exact product, except Mark Zuckerberg's has much more high end technology of face recognition and assisted technologies. What I mean by assisted is that Zuckerberg's lenses have AI in them and allow it to transmit to your ears what you're seeing. So you could actually like it could interpret reality pretty well. Where these were just cameras, and I'm just going to show an example of what that recording looked like. It would record a 360 video. This is me on top of Vesuvius, and which is kind of neat because it worked in this very gravity-based way. So you can kind of see everything I'm seeing, which is like neat. This is me the one or two times in my life where it was worth wearing a POV camera. It was cool, but otherwise, I just don't have a use case for it. So it is neat to see that like he decided to bring out these tech here. But now here's where the complication comes in. Will it work? And what I mean by that is if he's creating an AR environment, meaning gesture controls, right? Does it have enough restricted abilities to make you not look like a weirdo when you're like using it on a subway and like, reaching out?
Full zombie mode.
Yeah, full zombie mode, like typing in space, or like, God forbid, you're like doing like something that can be misinterpreted. you So it doesn't have that. Second, our recording capabilities good enough that it could process things in real time without catching on fire. Okay, now that's really important. That was the thing that
Especially when
Apple.
it's attached to your head.
And that big and bulky. That was a big thing that Apple had to deal with because wearing a computer on your head meant there was two chips. They had the computer chip and they had the Vision Pro chip. So it was two computers simultaneously working. And it was mostly exhaust going up to make sure that it was like the heat wouldn't cook you because you and I we both worked with these. We both own these things, but we both worked with VR. And remember how sweaty you'd get when you put the mask on?
My gosh, yes. It was very easy to zone out in the VR. There was one time I was using your VR in the Rick and Morty scenario,
Yes.
and I thought it had been 20 minutes and it was like 2 hours.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, time was a very different concept, but you could usually tell by how sweaty you would get.
Yeah. What was that game I loved? It was like Robot Mayhem or something. I don't remember. I used to show up early to work and like you just tear robots apart and throw them. Like, but I couldn't. I was so embarrassed. There was always this weirdness about VR that I always felt uncomfortable with. One was that like the user, let's say you're in the mask or like students in the mask, they don't know I'm watching them. There's like this weird voyeur experience to it, which is like they don't know how many people are watching them be ridiculous, tearing a robot's head off and throwing it, and me standing behind them, like they don't know where I am. We had several students. Remember they got hit, like they would swing, like a kid would get hit in the face, like So there was like, you had to create the safe space of it. We had a tiny office, so it was tough at the first part, but it also like grossed me out with that weird like style of performance. So now like now the Vision Pro itself was like this extra thing where it was mostly meant for computing. You sit down and you compute and you can like do it, but it was more of like this like personal experience. And now this thing looks like it's supposed to be fashion. And I love the point you make, which is like the market sometimes pushes these things out. So it's like, here's what cool looks like. And it's like, the question then becomes, can I rock this? Like, am I not
Right.
cool or is this just ugly? Like, I don't know.
Well, and think about it, right? That's how I think that's why the new Meta glasses are successful because they partnered with Ray-Ban. Who doesn't
Yes.
have like
Right.
who hasn't owned a pair of Ray-Bans of
I own,
some
I own
style,
Ray-Bans. Hmm.
like or in that, people it may not be Ray-Bans, but it's like inspired by a Ray-Ban design. I think that's why they're successful and people think that's a little bit more low key. Like you can obviously still see there's a camera there, but I think that's how they're selling so much of it. I have no idea how this man plans to sell this product because it makes you look like you're a clown.
It's also, yeah, it's not just clown work. It does look like clown glasses. It really does. But it's not just that. Like, you're right. The problem, I think, with Meta, the criticism is that the glasses do look cool. That is the criticism because those glasses are too cool. And like the coolness of it makes them look almost invisible. These glasses, as I couldn't really rock these every single day because they look ridiculous, but at least they didn't look cool enough that you could walk around and take somebody's identity without their permission. This looks like cameras. Okay, one's the spatial lens, this side, and one is the camera lens. And when you pressed it, a little ring would show up. You could hack that, of course, like with all the technologies. But that at least dissuaded you from being the creepers that I think a lot of Meta Ray-Ban wear because you can't really tell. Whereas Spiegel's lenses, the specs, the literally names again, same names, the specs of the 2026, 10 years ago, you and I went to New York City. I think it was cold out, and we waited in line for a vending machine, and you had to slide $130 into the vending machine, and this wonderful yellow container came out holding, which is also it's a battery charger. I still think in product design terms, this is still a great product design. Okay, because like this thing would sit and get seated in the bucket here and like charge. It was like, how cool is that you could charge your glasses in its case? Everything came with it, a little robust container. Like it was good. This spatial computing idea too is like a coffee table piece. When somebody comes over and sees your Vision Pro, it's like something you have to like showcase. And somewhere in between is this hardware that Spiegel's designing. And my whole wonderment of this is that what's the market? If he's a Snapchat guy, right? So are Snapchat users aching for an AR device? Are they aching for this machinery? I don't know who's asked for this.
Everyone I know that uses it, Snapchat, uses it as a messaging platform.
Yeah.
They send each other messages all the day. Like
Hmm.
that's it.
It is actually Snapchat, from what I know, because I'm no longer using it, but from what I understand, it is a pro-social environment. It means that people actually enjoy using it as messaging. Like that's good. It's a good space. The other thing too is like, does Spiegel have the technology and engineers to make it so it functions without getting sick? Like one of the biggest problems with VR and AR, and I think you know this, but like for those of you listening, my dissertation is on the history of the original consumer virtual reality, 1987 to 1993, which failed and didn't reemerge until 2011 when this hyper chud Hawaiian shirt wearing sociopath decided to reinvent it. And I don't mean that lightly. I mean, he literally runs a company that makes drones to kill people. When he resurrected it as the Oculus, that was like a new iteration of an old technology. It was a technology that had died. And the reason it died isn't what people think. It wasn't about the technological shortfalls, which I'll talk about in a second. It was the fact the internet came out. And so the internet is an immersive experience. You don't need to wear it on your face if you have it. So that first iteration was really about the extension of, here's, I think, a good point that needs to be brought up, which is that people today, whenever they use VR, forget its original intention. VR's original intention was mind expansion. It was to basically see art and technology in a new way that no one else could access via two-dimensional screens. You want an immersive experience. The downside is the technology in the 1990s didn't match what you could do with technology today. VR glasses, today, you don't get sick in them. Well, most don't. I still do. But that's because they have differential. When you drive a car, when you turn like left, the wheel inside is going to turn slower than the wheel outside because the wheel outside has to catch up to the turn. Otherwise, you'll hear like old cars, whenever they turn, they make that noise because one wheel is not doing it. Differential makes it so that when you turn your head left, one eye adapts to the other eye's movement so that you're not getting sick. So there's a ton of technology that has to go in just to make the monitors, the teeny tiny little monitors, work so you don't throw up or stop using it, because VR as a technology is immersive. And so they want you in it as long as possible. So anything that distracts you from the in part makes it unwearable. And so we obviously have the failure of the metaverse, the failure of Zuckerberg's Oculus systems, the failure of you name the VR flavor, and it just didn't work out. It's amazing that in 2026 we get another iteration of it. And so I don't know whether or not that iteration is going to make people feel ill, whether or not the graphics will work, how high resolution it is. Like, it just seems like they're trying to make, again, it's like we started. I just don't think he has the right friends.
I'm back on, I don't understand the purpose. I don't understand, to your point, did their users want this? How are there, I don't know what it's for. I don't know the why, other than it seems like they're just trying to compete with, Meta and possibly Apple sometimes,
Maybe. I think so. I think there is a market for AR. I truly believe there is. I think that the future of tech is wearables. I think that we're going to move much toward a quantization version of ourselves. I mean, I wear an Apple Watch. A lot of people wear Aura rings. It's like they're quantizing their experiences through their biometrics. But I also think there's a desire to take the phone out of the clunky shape and move it towards something that's like a little bit more seamless with reality. And one of the easiest ways to do it is wear it on your face, because then you can just see the phone. So I think the future is there. I just think we're like a decade from it. But I also think the use case of it is going to be smaller than we expect. I think it's going to be like people looking in the corner for what's the current weather, or like, what's the email that I just got, or like looking around the edges to see like updates more than like, or maybe chats that you could talk back to or like explain. But like, I think nobody's gonna be like sitting there like zoning out and doing their Snapchat feed like in front of their eyes. I don't see that as a use case. I see a lot of car accidents. I don't see that as a viable thing. And it's really bad for business when your clientele, dies. So that's not good.
Right. Well, and I think at one point my fear with AR and VR and all of that was that we were going to end up being like the humans in Wall-E, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But anymore, the more young people I talk to, the more people our age that I talk to, people are trying to be away from their screens. They're
Yes.
trying to live a screenless life. So in some ways I really do agree with you. Like, I think just like the listening devices that I have in my house right now, I use them to play music and I use them to ask what the weather is going to be like. Those are the two main uses for those things. I've got a sound system throughout the house that I talk to. Oh, they turn on and off my lights every night. I tell them to do that. I just don't see a world, like you said, where we're zoning out. It's not Ready Player One yet. I don't think we're there.
And if we get there, that's really bad.
Yeah.
The missing part of the Ready Player One discourse was like they needed the goggles because they lived in hell. Like,
Right.
there was no IRL didn't exist at that point for them. They literally lived in hell, and therefore the only escape was in the virtual. It was in the virtual world. So if you're in a point where you mandate virtual world, it's your IRL experiences have just dried up. That's over. So yeah, this is when somebody today in 2026, especially somebody who is a smart enough innovator and somebody who has created a platform that really does attract the right audience and stays true to it, to jump into this space is a question not just about his desire to leap into a known unknown, but also like, what does it say about an industry? And I think that is something that's confusing because, like, again, the launch time is just so odd for this thing to come out. So it's just something to think about. But I have to repeat, I do think there is a market for video producers or graphic designers to get into AR graphics, start selling them to places where you can kind of create translucence, overlays, digital objects that need use in real space. But I just think that like more computing on your face, again, like heats up. Like, I'm just assuming like this, you're like using this, flipping through your Snapchat, keeping your streak up, and all of a sudden you're like, wow, my head's really hot. And then poof or something. I don't know. I guess we'll see what happens in the next few iterations, but good luck,
Well,
Evan.
that was I wanted the Apple Vision Pro so badly because
Me
I
too.
wanted to work. I wanted to have the multiple screens. Like when they showed that, I was like, my gosh, that would make parts of my life so easier that I work from home. I work remote, so to put on a headset and then be in a virtual office and have as many screens as I want and manipulate things in space, like Iron Man did with Jarvis, that's the dream.
Me too.
But I don't want it to come at the expense of my head and neck where it could catch on fire, or it's so heavy that I have to train like an F1 driver to where the thing I need to do work. Like, that's not the world I want to live in.
I know. And there was the additional part of it too. I did a talk on this, which was like the Vision Pro gave us kind of a very odd version of. You remember its technique of FaceTime was built into it, and the FaceTime was kind of creepy because you weren't actually talking to somebody else's face; you were talking to their hologram.
Yes.
Because you couldn't. It's on your face. It's not projecting your face. It's projecting your hologram to somebody else.
It's like those HeyGen videos.
What?
It's like those HeyGen AI videos. Like,
Yeah.
it was you, but someone's wrong.
Right. Something's uncanny about it. So it's you, it's your avatar, it's your homunculus. It's your mini you, but it is not you. And again, this comes back to like, if you're wearing your camera on your face, you can't take a selfie. And a big part of the idea of Snapchat was the externalization of the technology to do it. Exactly. The filters. The big change was the AR filters. That's why, again, this is like coming back to like, what filter are we using? And really, again, the reason for these lenses, the great reason that these things existed was because it was an addition to the phone technology. It wasn't the phone technology. And I guess we'll just see. We'll see. Good luck, Evan. We'll see what comes from this.
Yes.
But it's ugly.
Get better friends. Thank you for joining us today on Network Issues. Like, share, subscribe, and do all the follows on the platforms.
And live a life where you need spectacles.